Here we go. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for hopping on. We appreciate your carving out your time and just investing into the CRP community. So with our platform, as everybody knows, our mission statement says it in the masthead at the top of the publication is to connect, elevate, and inspire realtors and just industry professionals in the city of Chicago. And so just the past 6-7 months has been, needless to say, insane. I mean, January, February of this year, who'd have thunk, right? We would be here in this spot on a screen at the end of October. And so I believe it's just a critical time for the best of the best to link arms, band together in town. We've dealt with worldwide pandemic, racial unrest, even the recent looting, a couple months ago. And so I think it's a critical time. We can't survive without each other. And so really the goal of these calls is to just take a break from quarantine when it's difficult to connect with groups of 10, 15 plus. Even, I heard DuPage, I think, is going to get shut down again. Just people it's just spiking again. So Zoom is the jam, as we say. And share what's real in the market in town. We started doing these at the end of May. And, it's been great just to get like-minded people together to sharpen each other and just to share some tips and strategies. So very briefly, I'm gonna allow the realtors to introduce themselves first. And then once that's done, I'll allow the partners to go. And, then I'll just kind of open it up for what you guys want to talk about. So let's see here. Sam, why don't you kick us off, my friend?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Nice to see all these lovely faces. Just a quick introduction. My name's Sam Shaffer. I'm the managing broker and owner of Chicago Properties. I've been selling real estate for now approaching close to 18 years.
Hey everybody, Jason Rowland Group at Compass. I've been in the business for 10 years. That's me.
Hi everyone, Anik Zampini with Diablo Properties, and in my 7th year.
Hi guys, I'm Hayley Westhoff with Compass, and I've been in the business for 7 years.
Hey guys, I'm Lisa Sanders with At Properties, been in the business for 17 years.
Thank you. So I will just say this. I'm gonna allow the partners to introduce themselves. Let me just say this. Most of you guys know my personality, and 99% of what flies out of my mouth is light and dry and sarcastic, and you kind of got to keep it light with 4 kids. So I will say this, though, this is the 1% that I am being honest and genuine and perfect. Not that I'm not honest all the time, but you know what I mean. Is I cannot do, as much as the realtors love what we do, I literally cannot do what I do on a day-to-day, a week-to-week, a month-to-month basis without our partners. This is where the funding of the publication comes from. This is where the helps, when we are, God willing, we will do an in-person events in the spring, but I'm not going to hold myself to that. But this is where it all happens. So, genuinely, Michael, Joe, Mark, I literally cannot do what I do without you guys. We have engagement from the top realtors in the Chicago community, which is hard in itself. It's hard to get a realtor's attention on something. I get that. I understand that, but I'm telling you, you guys are the ones who make it happen. So Joe, why don't you go ahead and go first, then Michael, and then Mark. So just take it away.
Thanks, Andy. Joe Towns, Glaser Development. Been in construction industry for 25 years. Had our own business now for 7.
Michael Bencks here with Guaranteed Rate, just a little over 13 years in the industry.
Hi, I'm Marc Cervantes, real estate attorney with Cervantes Chatt Prince, and I've been doing real estate for 19 years.
I appreciate it. Well, let's start jamming. This is the part where I shut up. The more I talk, the less value people are going to get. I'm just going to open it up. What are you guys seeing out there? What do you guys want to talk about? This is your time.
I was selfishly excited to get on here with all y'all just to understand a little bit more about what you are doing to move downtown high-rise condos, because I sure as hell don't have the secret sauce and hope you do.
That's the question of 2020.
I know, right? I figured. but I'm having problems even getting going.
I need you to
I've had
move
just a
them so
handful-
they come here. Please figure it
Yeah.
out.
It's extremely challenging for
waiting.
sure.
I will
Yeah.
say, well, I don't do a ton of high-rise business. One thing that I have been doing is just marketing to the building, because I do think this has been a time where renters are starting to consider to buy. And of course, renters usually love their building, and they, you know, have a higher chance of buying in the building. So I think that is probably the best way to market high rises right now, is just getting those renters to buy in that building.
Great
I can say
point, Hayley.
anecdotally, with regards to some of my agents, I have a lot of agents that work in Lakeshore East exclusively, and that's been really hit really hard. So what they've done is they've gone to their empty nesters in Naperville, Hinsdale, people that were looking in Lakeshore East years ago that couldn't get in because the barrier to entry was pretty high. So they're actually calling them and saying, look, we've got these listings, I've got these listings, and I've been able to get a couple of new contracts in Lakeshore East. I've also tried to cancel a bunch at Vista, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah,
I also think,
oh, sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say that I think that's a good hook, which is maybe say that it now could be for those looking for an opportunity. There are certainly increased inventory. The downtown market, in my opinion, will rebound. When that happens, I don't know, but I would say sooner rather than later. I was out with a client yesterday that said, let's do it. Let's go poke around downtown. And we have showings later today, which is great. So I'm excited for that. But I also have listings in West Loop or Loop and River North where we're not getting any traffic. And this is where the conundrum comes in, right? Where you're like, you tell your sellers, hey, let's lower the price, but that's not necessarily yielding more showings. So it's kind of a catch-22, which is a delicate balancing act.
I feel like, to Hayley's point, I have a lot of clients moving down there, but they don't want to buy, they're just renting. So how can we convert that? And they're staying for a while. You know, they're like selling their homes here and then they want to rent for 5 years. But I think the key is, how can we convert that to a sale?
I think you have to break down the numbers, because especially right now with low interest rates and the fact that they can get such a good deal. I mean, the same place downtown today might be worth, you know, 25% more in 4 years, because hopefully the market's going to rebound. The downtown market is going to rebound, and you know, it's just a really good opportunity right now. I also think pitching these downtown places to investors, because I took a buyer out last week, and every single listing we went in, the listing agent said, this is the lowest price 2-bedroom that this building has had in, you know, 10 years. So I think it's a really great opportunity. I mean, I even thought for a second I might invest in something, because prices are shockingly low. So it doesn't make any sense for someone to go downtown and rent right now. It is such a good opportunity for someone to buy right now.
But I do think that people are just scared. They don't know about the investment. I think that if our maybe city government could do some sort of revive to get people excited again, that might help. Jason, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, it's been hard to, you know, manage the expectations. I've touched base with the clients. You know, if I don't have any showings or tours or opens, I always give them a summary of the week on Mondays and include stats and details and everything like that. But, you know, it's just been, it's hard to tell them 2 weeks in a row, listen, we haven't had anyone through, you know? I mean, their expectations are, again, to your note, Hayley, like the market's on the north side, it's hot. Like I had buyers out, we're going to contract on stuff on the top of the network before it ever hits the market. Downtown, it's crickets. So it's hard to tell, you know, to be out one day with a buyer who's going under contract of something off market, first or second showing, and then the flip, having a conversation with your client who's got a listing that we haven't anybody through in 2 or 3 weeks. It's obviously difficult. And then you have to have a conversation about price. And then, oh, by the way, there's also 25 listings in the high rise available. You're just one of 7 2-bedrooms. It's a difficult conversation. So, you know, managing those expectations is difficult this time. And I just want to switch y'all head shaking.
Yeah, Jason, I feel the same way. If I sell something on the north side, it's gone in a day. But if I sell something on the northwest side over 500, I mean, I'm having conversations every Monday with frustrated sellers over 500. I mean, I even had a house featured on WGN. It's crickets before the election.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just keep saying, you know, be patient, wait till the election. I mean, the last election when the Cubs won, I never have been fired and rehired in the same week because people were having like their bipolar disorder. So, because as soon as the election happened, I got 3 offers on the house, and then they even upped my commission. But I have, you know, 4 homes priced over 500 here, and I just keep like trying to talk the sellers through it because it's very frustrating. And I keep waiting for the downtown people to come here, and they can't sell. So I'm seeing a lot of marked interested. I'm getting showings, but they've got to sell. Hayley,
yeah.
How do we solve this?
Oh, geez.
No pressure.
No, but I mean, I honestly think though, I mean, it's human nature. I mean, if you understand that whenever there's uncertainty, people are never going to want to pull the trigger, right? Because uncertainty leads to them being scared. I mean, I think one thing that I tell myself, and I don't necessarily have an answer for you, Jason, because you're representing sellers, but even just with buyers, you know, trying to have these conversations about how, look, you got to take advantage of the situation. But I've stopped doing that. I've stopped pushing the whole low interest rates, great opportunity, whole thing, because it's forcing it. And I'd rather stay in flow and help my clients out.
You guys ready? I figured it out.
Yeah,
We're gonna go live. I just logged on Facebook and logged back in. So everybody do this, and then just pretend this was happening the whole time. And if people actually look at the YouTube link, they'll laugh at this and think it's funny. So 1, 2.
Just had a good conversation.
That's right. No, it's good. People are gonna get stuff out of this no matter what. So.
But anyway, I was just wanting to finish my thought that, you know, I mean, I think it's one of those things where you've got this election, you've got COVID, and then you've got these investors or even folks who really are into what Congress is doing, what the politics, and they're really looking and waiting to see where the stimulus, where stimulus is going, and all these things that are kind of just up in the air right now. And I believe that, that kind of leads me to my next thought too, is that like, well, where do you guys think where that market is going, right? And we don't have to talk about it right now because I want to stick with Jason's ideas and concerns, but I mean, a lot of that has to do with the decisions, and they're coming to us, and asking us these questions. And none of us here, and it sounds cliche, but we don't have a crystal ball. I'd like to hear what you guys think about that later on, but can't force it.
I also think
communication with my clients,
I also think that listing agents need to be doing generally more education with their sellers, because sellers tend to hang on to the comps of, their neighbors that sold, 9 months ago. Well, 9 months ago was a completely different market, and that's not a relevant comp. So I've actually had several buyers in the high-rise market recently, and we've made offers on places, and the sellers won't come down because they're holding on to these comps that are from a totally different market. And the listing agents are also not understanding, they're of course negotiating with these comps, but comps are only relevant if the market conditions have not changed. So given that the market has drastically changed, especially downtown, those comps are no longer relevant. So I think that, listing agents need to educate their sellers that while this may have sold for X, 9 months ago, our market has decreased, X percent, and we need to be priced lower than that. And this place, unfortunately, is going to, sell lower than this comp because the market has changed.
Hayley, I totally agree with you. I think it's about working with the other agent, like especially if you're representing a buyer and explaining this. But yes, you do have to have an open ear. I mean, I'm telling my sellers these things too, like, I get it, we have comps from 9 months ago, but you have to really take into the effect of what's happened here in the city. It's a big deal, and it does affect the market. And, you know, for me, I feel like anything over 500 came to a screeching halt, like basically, you know, at the beginning of October. If you hadn't sold by then, you know, it's going to be a struggle. Jason, what are you feeling? I think we're not.
I think Jason's.
I
would say north of Lincoln Park, which has been great. But I do have listings downtown right now that are difficult, and I took buyers out. It's interesting. I had a buyer that pre-COVID, no, actually not pre, like right as we were going into shutdown, went under contract on a deal, backed out.
Oh, yeah.
We got the steel banks. Went quiet the entire time of COVID and has come back out. We just found a property off market, and that was we just went under contract. We were the very first showing. Tan deal, was great. All was good. Inspections today too. Fingers crossed. All y'all were talking about bad inspections recently. Hope that doesn't come our way.
Oh, brutal, brutal.
But yeah, and then I just took clients out, you know, over the weekend, and we found something off. Now it was on market for like 75 days, and we were in a contract, a good deal. So, you know, the buyers on the north side have been good. I have a realistic seller downtown and an unrealistic seller downtown. So obviously one's better to manage than the other. So, you know, and again, I think we can only do what we can do, right? We're doing opens, we're communicating with the seller. We are providing stats. We are being nimble on the pricing if needed. And, you know, I'm communicating with other brokers in the building too. Hey, what are your showings? What's going on here and there? What are you seeing? It's similar, you know, I mean, we're all in the business. We get it. We're doing what we can do. I think it's just reps, like just keep going through the process and keep doing what you're doing.
Where's our lenders here? Who's our lender? Okay. I had a problem during COVID where I had a $1 million property under contract. I was the buyer and he had a 10% loan. What's happening with those? Because thank God, guaranteed rate saved me. But
low down payment jumbos, we've always had a strength in. There used to be 5% down jumbos, 10% and so on. And then obviously because of COVID, you know, if you're a CEO at a company making $500 grand a year salary and you get laid off, or like, oh, you don't just find another $500,000 salary job the next day. You know, that's a little more challenging. So the jumbo market is restricted a little bit. But yeah, 10% down jumbos we can still do. But these days, I mean, you got to have awesome credit. You got to have, you know, reserves, which is a function of your monthly payments. You got to have all these things, you know, in your favor just to be viable. Because, you know, once the loan gets up to 800 grand, $1 million plus, you know, you have the same amount of investors, right? So you have less people giving the money, and you know, their rules, right? He or she with the gold makes the rules. So it's definitely more challenging, but still able to be done. Oh, but and also, I was gonna circle back to a comment Hayley made earlier with the clients and like with comps, you know, 9 months ago and now in the market and so on. I had a realtor the other day. I heard this analogy that she shared with a buyer when we were on this call, and she goes, "It's like when you go to a nice seafood place and you want lobster, it's market price." She's like, when they're in season, the market price is lower, right? There's more inventory. When it's off season, then the market price is higher. But you can't be thinking about summertime. You got your lobster for $40 and now it's 70. Like that's just the way it is, you know. And it seemed to kind of register with the buyer that, you know, things that might have happened, you know, 9 months ago, 6 months ago, and so on. That ain't what's going on right now.
A quick question for the realtors out there. When do you feel it's appropriate to do a price change? Do you guys have a benchmark in place? Like for me, I like to evaluate after 3 weeks. And if after 3 weeks we haven't had second showings or the activity that is appropriate, then it's time to have that, I call it a strategic conversation. Does anyone have any?
I do the same thing, always 3 weeks. But right now, before the election, like I've already done my price changes and I'm not asking them until after.
I think it depends on the price point. I think it depends on the time of year. I mean, if it's a property that's under 700,000 and it's the height of the spring market and you've only had one showing in 2 weeks, I think it's time to reevaluate. You know, but if it's $1 million+ single family home and it's, you know, winter, and after 3 weeks you've had 4 showings, then that's not so bad. So I think you kind of should have these conversations with the sellers, depending on the price point and depending on the time of year. You know, if we are priced correctly, we should have, you know, 2 to 3 showings in the first week and, you know, 1 to 2 showings, you know, week 2 and week 3. If we're not getting that plus positive feedback, then we need to have a conversation about reducing the price. I think that kind of helps plant a seed for that conversation, and gives them kind of a rule of thumb.
No, I definitely agree. I think it depends on the price point and the season. So I agree with that. But I'm also, you know, I also pay attention to open houses quite a bit, you know, again, depending on the price point. But if you know, it's not just getting a lot of people through, but if you're getting people with their agents to come through, that really means a lot, you know? So if you've got a property at a $350,000 price point and you've got at least, you know, anywhere between 4 to 6 people who come through with their agents, then you know you've priced it really well, you know? And the same can be said with a higher price point, but just the numbers change a little bit. And I just, having done so many open houses, you know, on my own properties, you know, I mean, you kind of have an understanding of what that expectation is for different price points. But, you know, I think part of that is understanding how many people actually do come, or are they just nosy neighbors, you know? So there's a difference there.
Sam, to your point, so I get it where a lot of times when I'm already in contract, a low appraisal comes in. So I guess from the beginning, when you have your listings, and going back to Hayley's point about not looking at comps from 9 months ago. So when you're actually listing the property for sale at first, how are you guys looking to list the properties? I mean, are you looking at that comp from 9 months ago? Are you looking just to get the most out of you can for the property? Because when a low appraisal comes in, I have to deal with it. And then all of a sudden there's a battle between the seller thinking that the original list price, which was probably too inflated, versus what the lender is looking at. And sometimes I can't bridge the gap, and the clients will come to me and say, well, it was probably overvalued in the first place. So are you guys adjusting your list price at the beginning now?
I'll chime in. I'd say for me personally, you know, I am working off those comps because that's the most scientific way to approach it. Obviously, I want to have a collaboration with my seller and share with them the different strategies with pricing. At the end of the day, it's typically the seller's going to push for the higher price, albeit us as realtors know that the highest price isn't going to net you the most money. But a lot of times for me personally, I mean, you're competing against other agents and they're working off similar data. And the consensus is that this is what most realtors have agreed on. So it's hard to be the guy that says, hey, list it for lower, I'm your guy. So I think that's kind of, I call it the tap dance, right? Like we're kind of have to tap dance and talk out of both sides out of our mouth to get the listing, to advocate for our seller, but also be transparent and overly communicative throughout the process to share with them that we need to be nimble. We tried this suggested price point. It made sense at the time, but now we have to be proactive versus being reactive and chasing the market. So to answer your question, I mean, I think me personally, I am working off comparables going back, you know, within the last year, and recognizing to my sellers that we will have to be nimble throughout the process, or potentially we can get it sold. And I've been on both sides where I've sold stuff pretty quickly, the lower price 500 and under, and I'm struggling with some of the higher price condos that are listed in the 7s and 8s.
So to Sam's efforts, I mean, I'm doing the same. I'm just going off the comps, but being really honest about, you know, what's happening in regards to, you know, the city, and just being super honest, giving two sides of it and giving maybe two price points and letting them decide.
Do you think that's better than having to do a price reduction instead of just starting with a lower price first?
A lower price is way better.
Way better.
Yes. Way better.
They will always, most always get a better price if they price it right from the beginning.
But also, yeah, it's not about don't underprice it, don't overprice it, just hit the nail on the head. But also what I'm telling sellers is like buyers these days just want everything turnkey. So you really have to have a turnkey product. You've got to work really hard to get them to understand that. Some of my older clients have a hard time, some don't. If I feel like they're struggling with it, I just go more towards the price. Like, okay, then we've got to really price it aggressively. But honesty is always the best.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also I think it's also about having that conversation and comparing the differences between wholesale versus retail, right? New versus old, right? Some folks who want to put their home, that's been built in 2005, and then you've got the new construction, and they're looking at them and being like, well, this is this price. And you're like, no, you don't understand. Like, yours is now verge on now considered being old. You can't be there. So that's one. And then having that conversation about like hitting it right on the nose, to me, is not where the market is, right? It's being slightly under. That's when you kill it with market time, and that's been, at least for lack of a better word, my secret sauce. But yeah.
To Lisa's point, I couldn't agree more about that. Properties today have to be turnkey ready. And, just as an example, I just sold something at 340 Randolph, where the average market time for these identical units was over 300 days. In the same tier, the last two sales took I think 250, and the other one almost a year and a half. I mean, it was insanity. So I had the sellers, redo the kitchen. That whole building is just a little dated right now, and we sold in 2 weeks. So I do think that now more than ever, a buyer needs to get really excited about a place because they're skeptical, and until they fall madly in love with something, they're not going to move forward. So
Hayley, I totally agree. They expect a lot.
Yeah, they do.
They give a lot in order to get the home sold. I mean, you really have to have a turnkey product. That's what I'm seeing over and over. And even with my own, my own buyers, like, I'm lucky if I get away with one thing that's dated.
Yeah. No,
like, okay, no. You guys can handle this,
I also just want to,
what I said, getting away with one thing that's dated, literally.
Yeah, exactly. So Joe Towns, who's on this call, is actually my builder. He built my home. He's amazing. So maybe we kind of swing this conversation and start to talk about cost-effective things that sellers can do to increase the likelihood of it selling and reduce market time. And Joe can maybe talk about, things.
I get Hayley's blurry text pictures and asking me how much it costs to do a roof deck.
Yeah, I text her on a daily basis.
Yeah, pretty much. There's pretty much a guaranteed. Yeah, there's pretty much a guaranteed Saturday text of, hey, how much does this deck cost? Well, how big is the deck?
So like, I'm constantly bothering my contractors. I've gone from one contractor to like 4 now that I need, because I'm so needing the updates and they're so busy. Hayley, are you finding that it's so hard to get contractors?
It is so hard. I mean, I think we got into the wrong industry.
I feel like I'm a GC. I'm literally going to pick up a cabinet today for a house that didn't sell in Edison Park that I'm taking over. And I talked to the seller into like, hey, you've got to get this, updated. We have to, or this isn't going to move. But I'm literally had to piece together 4 different contractors because my main ones are so busy and I'm going to pick up the cabinet just to get the thing done.
Yeah,
For the bar base.
I think you guys can attest to this just as well as I can. Since COVID hit, I've never seen Home Depot, Lowe's, any of those places busier. And it all has to do with the fact that everybody's been sort of nested for the last 6 months and they're looking at all these things and doing all these projects, which means that all the contractors behind that have been slammed. Our specialty is sort of new construction, large remodel, renovation, new, development stuff. But I get calls, texts all the time from past clients or realtors or friends of friends that are like, hey, do you have time to do a kitchen? Do you have time to do a bathroom? And unfortunately, that's not our specialty, but all the guys that I know that I can pass on, that I refer to, are all months out. I mean, everybody's just ultimately just slammed.
Unbelievable.
And
Joe,
honestly,
do you see that slowing down this winter with?
It depends. Same with your guys' industry.
I see it slowing down for sure, because I've already been told by a couple of my developers. They said, just wait because I have my own personal project. They're like, just wait till the winter. I'm telling you, it will slow down. But Joe, to your advantage, I would be doing as many projects as possible because like Hayley and I, could you imagine if somebody called us to sell the house and we were like, or Jason, just like, you know what, I'm too busy right now. I'm just not going to show up for that listing appointment, where like the contractors do not show up. They're just like, nope, not going to do it.
And honestly, I've had to turn away work because we're just not built for that. Like a lot of that, I have 2 or 3 guys that I can in-house that I can rely on to do that. And sort of run that stuff and whatever. And even the subcontractors that I use, for the single families and the other stuff that we do, I mean, I'm battling with every other GC or every other developer that uses some of the same guys to get schedules and whatever.
Yeah.
I
see
toyed
that.
with the model of having a part of our business that does just the remodel stuff and the little lipstick projects and whatever. It's just hard to sustain that because you have to have the right people in place to support it. So what I've just kind of circle back a little bit, and just a question for you guys, are you guys then talking about turnkey? Are you guys seeing that the new construction condos, some of the single families, whatever, are moving faster than, the established buildings and the established properties that are trying to sell?
100%.
Not necessarily. I don't know, Haley?
So
I mean, not necessarily new construction, but just
recent,
updated and newer. I'm for sure seeing that.
I've got a client, we have a new project in Bridgeport on the river, and they're all townhomes, and they sold like hotcakes. Price point was really important, but it was higher than anything else we had sold there. It was our third phase of the project, but we have a wait list for these townhomes. So my client did a really good job. Jameson did a good job with marketing these things. And we have all these buyers that are pushing us to get these things closed before we're supposed to close on these. So the new construction, if it's priced right, if it's in the right area, of course, I mean, that doesn't change, pandemic or not.
right?
They moved, and open houses, we had lines in the open houses.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask that question is when you're talking about, people not wanting to have to do anything turnkey walking in, I figured that would be more of a motivator, even if the price point's a little higher than, maybe what they're looking for. They don't have to touch anything, even if it's just like you said before, at least like one item, a bathroom or whatever. It's all done. It's all ready to go. So I was just curious on your guys' feedback for that.
I also think it makes more sense right now to pay a little bit more for something that's done, since money is essentially free right now and so cheap, to buy something and spend 40 grand of your own money to do a rehab. So I think it makes more financial sense. I think, who wants to do a project? I mean, very few people. And it's just easier, especially right now with COVID, where people don't want a lot of people in their house. It just makes more sense from all fronts.
And Joe, it's literally so bad with the lack of contractors that I have former real estate brokers calling me, asking me for help to do their homes. Like just that I'm friends with, who are like, Lisa, can you bring your guys to my house and please update it, because, you know you know people and I really need to get this done. I have this guy doing it and he's so slow. I mean, I literally just had a call yesterday from an agent here who's not in the business anymore, just begging me to bring my guy. I don't know.
We should have just streamed live from we should have just streamed live from Lisa's house. I think that's what we should have done and brought everybody over there. I don't know.
Too many people. Right. It's a group larger than 6. It would not be
that's
proper.
Right. I'm kidding.
But just to like, I wanted to, obviously, I'm sure you all feel the same way, but I've been asked a lot of times about this, the back end of 2020, the front end of 21. How do you see the market? What do you think is going to happen? Even if COVID goes crazy again. I just think people have learned to live with COVID right now. And I think that showings and opens, I mean, we all know what April was like, where people wouldn't let opens happen, where no one was coming by and it was very challenged. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think people have learned to live with it and shop for homes amongst it. So I think that the market's the market, the rates are down. I think we'll still see a lot of activity, and I don't think it'll be like that. So I'm not at all hesitant about what the back end of 20's got and the front end of 21 has.
I will say this too. We've had a lot of conversations for new projects, and the unfortunate part is because money is so cheap right now, it kind of has this little tinge of like 2007, where people they're trying to do more with the money that they have. And the other thing too is like they have sort of an unrealistic budget when it comes to some of these projects. They think that because the money's so cheap that they can spend less, out of their own pocket, right? Or whatever that entails. So we've had to have pretty honest conversations with, whether it's the realtor that's bringing us the project or it's the client themselves about, well, we want to do all this stuff, and we give them a price and they're like, oh, I had no idea, but we're only paying, 2%, right? I'm like, yeah, that's great, but still costs X amount to do it. And part of that driver is obviously, I'm sure you guys have heard, we've had huge increases in lumber costs. We've had huge increases in other material costs. Labor costs are up. Land prices are sort of steady, I guess, if you will, but all these things have increased, but people are looking at the money being so cheap but not realizing it still costs X amount to do the actual build or build out or remodel or whatever. So we try to encourage some of the realtors and other people to like reach out to us, have that conversation ahead of time before you start showing them a tear down property or a remodel property or anything like that, so they really understand the cost of construction right now.
I was just to add to that, Joe, I have a good friend of mine. Actually, it's where I deer hunt at in Missouri, who has a huge farm and it's having this property. The loggers come through. And if you thought construction costs were up, he's got 80 grand. I didn't know how the process works, but the logger gets half and he gets half for the logger to come in and do that. He's getting 40 grand just for like 100 acres of timber white pine is apparently like through 3X what it usually is. So that's down to the nuts and bolts of construction costs. I was like, holy cow. That's just pure timber coming out of the woods. It's crazy.
Just anecdotally, a house that we did last year, a similar size house I priced out, and the lumber was double the cost.
Wow.
And that's in a year. Essentially a year. So it went from 68,000 to almost 130,000 just for the lumber. Now that's not sustainable. That's not going to last. It's already dropping, but we don't know where that floor is yet. Like all the suppliers have been like, we don't know where it's going to land. Like it could land back to where it was last year. It could stay up 20, 30%. It's not going to stay at double, but it's going to come down. We just don't know where that floor is. So what that's done is, obviously, like I just said earlier, the conversation of cost of construction, whatever that is, whether it's a remodel or new construction or whatever, has got to be done early on in the conversation with any of your clients or anybody who's looking to go down that road.
Yeah.
And we like to get in as early as possible with clients, if, obviously want to win the business, but it's also just education, because we don't want to waste each other's time, right? You guys don't want to waste your time going around showing properties and then realizing that they're just going to have to buy something that's already done, which we've had happen. But at the same time, we don't want to waste our time bidding a project or going through the motion and then have them go, well, wow, that's 200 grand more than we thought. So it's we're happy to get on a call. Hayley will tell you, like, we're accessible. We try to make ourselves that way just because it helps everybody across the board.
So what do you guys think? What are your opinions of what's going to happen to value in 2021? Do you guys think it's going to stay stagnant, go up, go down? I'm curious of your thoughts.
My 2 cents is I think we're going to see a big Q1. I think there'll be some momentum after the election. I think there's pent up demand. Interest rates are still low. Housing has a utilitarian purpose. People feel cooped up. Like I said, there's pent up demand. So I think Jason alluded to this earlier. I mean, no one, in my opinion, is in panic mode at all. I think there's just a level of patience, and I think time will see some increase in value overall. So I have kind of an optimistic approach.
So Sam, you think the values will be up in 2021?
I do think they'll be up.
Mm-hmm.
I think
agree.
every day changes. Like even this past week, I had a handful of showing requests on listings that were very quiet. I couldn't put my finger on it. Then this week it's slow, and next week it might increase again. So every day it's a new headline, and the new headline will kind of dictate where the trends are going. And I think there'll be a lot of optimism and light at the end of the tunnel. I honestly, I feel there's been, just to back up real quick, the pandemic hit in mid-March and everyone hit pause, and all of our sellers and buyers, they're like, Sam, or they're like, what do I do? And my answer was, I don't know. It was just, I didn't have the answer. And then a few weeks later, I called my sellers like, I got it, I have the answer. There's buyers that are actually looking to purchase right now. So now's a good time to put our property back on the market. And it wasn't revolutionary what I did. Everyone followed suit. And we all had probably really active, better than expected spring and summer market. And then it's, again, every day changes. And here we are, it's quiet, and the downtown market stagnant, and there's no real showings happening. But again, tomorrow brings a new day and new opportunities. So to answer your question, I think we'll either be at similar or higher pricing.
Yeah, with the exception of the downtown market.
It'll get there.
Yeah, hopefully.
I feel like over the years, people have pretty short memories, whether it's buyers or sellers, and none of this is new. There's always like some crazy thing going on, whether it's an election year, whether there's some type of, some of the stock markets, the economy, or whatever it might be. And usually things kind of regress back to the mean. So I totally agree with Sam. When people ask me about rates or, the market or so on, I have a great outlook on it. I think, Chicago is a massive city for people coming here for jobs, massive city for renters converting to buyers with condos and all that. So, I mean, I definitely feel that things will just eventually normalize and everything will be fine. It's like I said, with this pandemic and all that stuff, we'll figure it out. And years down the road, people just forget all about it.
I'm in the same boat. I feel like it's going to be slightly up in the springtime as well, Hayley.
Yeah.
Not crazy, but I think it's going to be up.
Yeah, I think just people are just waiting right now. Everything's on hold. But I think once we hit January, that's the spring market, and it will start to pick up. I don't know about prices though. I know that interest rates will always be low for the next couple of years. That's my take. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to pick up in my opinion, right in mid-January.
It's not too far away. Enjoy the holidays.
Right after that.
It'll be crazy again, right?
Agreed.
That's crazy. It's 2 months away. 2021 is literally 2 months away. Jason, when you said that, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this year I feel like it's been a decade in just these past 10 months.
Yeah, but it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it feels like. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
And you're up.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, it feels like March 324th right now. That's all I was going to say.
You know, I had a, speaking of January, I've got your first off-market January 2-2 in Bucktown, everybody here. Call me or send me an email if you're interested, but I had a lunch with a client. I want to say it was last Thursday, and his office called off 20 or work from home is a thing. Like they're closing their operations office space here in Chicago. And he's like, Jason, I love to skydive. You know, I want to be where that's a thing. I want to be close to the ocean. I'm moving to Georgia. I'm getting 10 acres. I'm getting some chickens and a garden, and I'm just going to live life. He's like, I'm like, amazing. I'm jealous. Sounds great. So we're selling this 2-2 in Bucktown in early January. So, I mean, I think that as that becomes, as COVID expands or obviously hopefully decreases, I still think companies have learned to work from home. And I think it's going to be a thing at some level for every firm, and how that dictates sellers and buyers. You know, I think, Joe, I think you start seeing, obviously you probably already have, with new construction being the home office being the feature. And I still think that sellers are going to do if they don't have to be here and paying taxes and you know, high taxes here in Chicago and working from home isn't their thing, you're going to see them leave. And I think buyers who want to do that are going to take advantage of that here in the city as well. So that's another reason to be excited about 21.
Well, Jason, earlier this year, when the owner of Twitter made that announcement, where he was pretty early on this. This was probably like a March, April thing, where he said, "Hey, going forward, you never need to come back in the office again. You can 100% work remotely." And then just after that was like the biggest mass exodus from the San Francisco, from the Bay Area. You know, people moving to the mountains of Montana, or people moving to Florida, or the coast, or whatever. So yeah, without being handcuffed to an office or a downtown area, or public trans, I got to be by the L or the Metro. Yeah, I totally agree that is going to be a thing here for the future, working from home. And Joe, I'm sure he's going to be knocking out all sorts of schematics and plans for offices, awesome outdoor patios and entertaining, stuff to keep everything at home.
It's definitely become a trend. The first conversation is we want as much outdoor space as possible. The second conversation is where can I put my home office? Yeah. Or set up their kids for, at home learning for the near future. Like those have all become early conversations. Used to be, what's my kitchen going to be? And what do I want to do here? Now it's, office space, outdoor space, and kids at home learning.
You mean homeowners, they don't want to work in 7-year-old girls' bedrooms that you can now in an office with like pink elephants and purple giraffes and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking
of good luck though.
Speaking of trends, I got 2 short sales this week. I haven't had a lot of short sales in years. For the agents, with depressed pricing, do you foresee a rush of short sales again like we did in 08, 09, and 10?
Well, if I guess to get for the lender side of it, a lot of banks are more willing to let you go into forbearance, if everyone knows what that means, or work with the homeowners so that it doesn't get to that point of like a foreclosure, pre-foreclosure, short sale, stuff like that. So I've been noticing a lot of lenders. These are all the big servicers in the country that are very open to letting people modify their loans, skip a few payments, go into forbearance. So I'm assuming they're doing that to avoid getting to that phase of like the point of no return.
I think statistically, like overall, just again, I've had conversations with a lot of my lender friends, but I don't remember the number exactly, but the majority of folks have equity, and none of them who I've spoken to, and even some financial analysts are saying like, there's just a lot of people have equity, and you're not going to see that foreclosure and that being an issue.
There is some staggering numbers of how many, forbearance scenarios there are right now. It's hard to tell how many people are just taking advantage and how many people truly can't pay their mortgage. So it'll be interesting to see.
Conversation, and they were the same folks that I was talking to, like 5 or 6 of them were all saying like the majority, a lot of people, let's just say this, a lot of people are just taking it as a precautionary thing and taking an advantage of just the free money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And investing it. So.
Yeah, in the lending world, it used to be where when you got a forbearance, that was kind of like a strike one, strike two, and almost strike three. And you had to wait a while afterwards, and it was for like legitimate financial hardship. I have clients that tell me, I'll look at their credit report and I see the forbearance. I'm like, what are you doing? Is everything all right financially? Like, oh yeah, I went online to pay my bill and it said, do you want to miss a few payments? I clicked the button, that was it. Like, they literally had no concept of what it even means to go into forbearance. They just thought, oh yeah, I'll skip a few payments. They're like, maybe, whoever wins the election, they'll just forgive all these back payments and it's free. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's wait for that one. We'll see how that goes.
That's funny. So it's a bad thing, Mike? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you don't need it, it's yeah.
Well, final thoughts. Anybody? We're coming about a couple minutes out, so final thoughts.
Well, is anyone marketing any differently for this end of this year, given everything that the country has gone through? Anyone doing anything differently than they normally would at this time of the year? Just out of curiosity.
I like that, Anik. We'll wrap up with that. Everybody, quick around the horn, 15 to 30 seconds on that. Maybe provide like a gold nugget or two.
I'll jump in. I just think when the pandemic hit, I think everyone made a concerted effort to amp up their online presence with virtual tours, Matterport, 3D walkthroughs. And I'm seeing a lot of my listings get a lot of, is being favorited a lot, which is perplexing for my sellers because they're getting a little bit of confidence saying, oh my God, look at all this online traffic, but we're not getting as many people through the door. But that's was one of the things that I did right from the onset, was just do everything and anything I can just to get as many eyeballs through online marketing.
Second that. I did a lot of, go ahead,
Go
Hayley.
ahead, Jason.
Rock, paper, scissors right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Sam. Of course, like every other agent, I was doing a ton of virtual tours, and I have actually found that for certain properties, it's actually not the best idea, because if a buyer walks through a property and notices something that doesn't work for them, they will just not request a showing. Whereas when they can go through the property and you're there and they have a problem with the layout, we could give them a solution, and because they're virtually walking through online and just swiping right or swiping left and not viewing the property, we don't have that opportunity to do that. So since people have started touring properties again, I've actually stopped doing virtual tours for certain properties where I think that the buyer needs to come and see for themselves so that I can give them a solution to make it work for them.
Love it. Jason,
Yeah,
go ahead, my man.
That's good. From a marketing standpoint, we just doubled down, if not tripled down on our online presence. I went all in on Instagram, and the result has been recently, and Bencks actually has this deal. I had someone reach out from LA who is not a Compass broker, who found me online, who vetted me amongst two other brokers here in Chicago, and just selected me to work with their clients. It was her sister-in-law and brother, and we got the deal, and it was purely from Instagram, just from putting out content and doing video work, what have you. And over time, I just think people are listening a lot more now because there's a lot of time spent on social media. It was a big W for us, and we're excited. We're under contract on a great property, and it was a win. So I think that what we've done was just completely double or triple down on social and it's worked. So it was cool. It was a big win. Yeah. It was
also your haircut too.
Totally
Michael, Joe, Mark, any final thoughts? You're getting creative. Yeah. And if you have to jump off, I blocked this for 10:15. Do not feel bad. Totally all good. So just want to give the partners a chance to kind of throw in their 2 cents, 15, 30 seconds. If they're getting creative.
I'm just more and more phone calls. just because I network with the realtors, so staying top of mind, more phone calls than emails, and just picking up the phone and hopefully getting somebody.
Yeah, and that's old school and that's basic. Phone goes a long way, you know. I mean, it really does. It shows effort. Joe, what about you?
You know, we don't. It's, you know, we're in a, you know, a referral based business like you guys are. Like, we built our business 100% off of just referrals and relationships, and we've spent this past year, especially, and this being a huge part of it, the Chicago Real Producers, is trying to network to the right people, because we cater to a certain group, and that's fine, and we're good with that, and that's what we're good at. And so we've spent this last year developing relationships with other realtors, with other architects, with, you know, the right type of, you know, advertising, if you will, just so we can, and then obviously the online stuff as well, that we've done more with Instagram and whatnot to try to just get our face and name out there a little bit more. Just being strategic about it, not just blanketing, you know, our trucks or, you know, whatever, and signage. So just been more strategic and more about building relationships, good relationships, and working the referrals, and it seemed to have paid off. So far so good for 2020 and hopefully into 2021.
Michael, close us out, my man.
Yeah, I would just say that the biggest thing would be consistency. You know, you can't, you know, I can't do 50 push-ups and all of a sudden be shredded as Mr. Shaffer is here. You know, you got to do 50 push-ups for, you know, 6 months, or, you know, it's a constant repetition of the same little things you're doing before that worked. And just, you know, just keep doing it, keep doing it. Eventually, everything's going to kind of come back to where it should be.
I love it. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Apologize, it took us probably 15 minutes to get the live feed up. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to cut the live feed right now. And all right, cool. Hey guys, no, I appreciate you carving the time out. You know the drill. We've been doing these since May. So if you want to get on another one, shuffle the deck, different realtors, different partners, I'm always happy to put these together. They've been super fun. And you know, you guys can always hit me up with anything. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Take care.
Have a good one, guys. See you.